Greetings YouTube, my name's Alex and I am the Reef Dork, and today I'm going to give you my second update of my nano tank, my Aqua 1 Mini Reef 120. Now the tank's about 6 weeks old and it's a month since I last gave you an update, and in that update I said I was going to slow things down because I was getting a bit too carried away. That hasn't really happened, so let's take a look and I'll show you what I've done. So then here we are, and I will cover off firstly the good bits and then we'll move on to the bad bits. So good bits, first off, I did have on the last update sort of some silicone smears that went across the tank. They came off really easy with just a double edge razor, just sort of like that. Get rid of them nice and easy. So the tank looks much cleaner now, which is great news. And I can see my fish and corals better. However, that's boring and dull. The news really is the rock on the right hand side. Now, last update there was a different rock sat there, and this is a rock that is going to be covered in Zoas that, in my own nerdy way, I'm going to call Mount Cracker Zoa. Let's take a closer look. So I commissioned this to be made by a company called R&R Aquascapes. I'll put a link to their Facebook page in the description. This is quite a simple build for them, to be fair, but they have done some amazing scapes and I really want them to do my scape for my upgrade. This though, the plan is just to cover it in Zoas so they all kind of spread out and they are, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches across and all sort of mix in really well and the colours glow and they just kind of mix and match and look really good. So that's the plan. In terms of the Zoas I've got on there, I've added loads since my last update. I think I had 7 at the last time I gave you an update, and looking at there, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 on that rock alone, and I've also got 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 in total. I've also got another 6 on a frag rack, so I've got loads of Zoas, and they are going to spread nicely, and hopefully they will bed in reasonably quickly. I've already found that in the month I've had them all in place, I'm getting a little bit of growth, and I've got heads on a few of them. You can see the one at the back on the left-hand side of the rock. That's a rainbow Zoa of some kind. Let's see if I can point to it. That guy. So that was 2 heads when I first got it, and now it's 3. And that's a similar story across the board. I've also added another Euphilia and a couple of Acans. The Acan's obviously on the left, the Euphilia on the right. Now I did have 2 Euphilias on the last time. They're both hammer corals. No, that's not right. One was a hammer, one was a frog spawn. I'm now down to 2 hammers only, and I'll come on to that when I do the bad news. But for now, the one on the front on the right, that guy right there, that is my new purple tipped hammer coral. Now you can't quite see, but there's some kind of hitchhiker. In fact, let me see if I can get closer and show you. There we go. You can just about see it, I think. Let's see if I can point to it. Around there, it's some kind of brown tubey type thing. Don't know if it's a worm or a snail or something. I think it's innocent and harmless, but I'm tempted just to get rid of it anyway. The mistake I made on this, and maybe this is Dio in my next update of reef mistakes, was not dipping them. Now, I don't like quarantine corals, don't think many people do that, but I should get some Coral RX Pro, and I've got to promise myself to do that next time. However, we are where we are, and that looks all right. I don't think it's a major problem, so I might just leave it, or I might dip it at some point when I get round to it. On the Acans that I've added, they're all looking a little bit sad at the moment, but that's early days, so hopefully they'll come out. But it's good that I've got a little bit more Acanage going on in the tank now. Now, it's not just corals I've added, of course. As you will see from my last update, I have also added quite a lot of fish. Now, I think there were 2 fish last time I did the update. That was just the Midas Blenny at the bottom left and the guy at the back, the Solon Wrasse, the red-headed fairy wrasse. Since then I've added 4 fish, 3 of which you can see quite nicely, and in fact let's see if we can take a closer look at them. So the ubiquitous clownfish, of course, are there, male and female, and there is at the back, the star of the show, the guy I'm happiest with, is the Radiant Wrasse, or Iridis Wrasse. I love him, I think he looks really cool, and he's constantly pecking at the rock and looking around, looking for food and morsels and stuff. So, a bit of a character fish, I like him a lot. However, The main reason I've gone for him is because I want something in there to pick off nudies and pests and that sort of stuff from my Zoas. Given that I'm going to have quite a lot of Zoas, I need something to do that work for me. If, for example, I don't know, I forget to dip, or if I do dip and it doesn't do the job. So that's what he's in there for. Iridis Wrasse in for pest control. Now those are the fish that you can see in there. There is one fish that is conspicuous by his absence, and if you watch my reefing mistakes video, you will already know this story. A few days after my last update, I bought myself a scarlet wrasse, a not a scarlet wrasse, what is it? A scarlet hawkfish, flame hawkfish. Absolutely stunning fish, and I was delighted with him, but he died after a few days. And I think the reason for that was because he didn't like the stress. He was quite small. I'd guess he was less than an inch long, so he was a juvenile. He arrived into my local fish shop on the day I collected him. So he came straight in, sat in the tank, then came back to my office for 3 hours, sat there, and then came to the tank. And unfortunately, he didn't quite settle and he died. He didn't show any signs of diseases, and all the other fish looked fine. So I'm just going to put that down to my mistake for putting him in too soon. But I've still got 5 fish in here now, which is a reasonably big bio load, I think. And I was originally planning to up the ante a bit with there and maybe put in 1 or 2 more fish. But for now, I think I'm going to leave it and see how I get on with these guys. It's a decent number. The bio load is good and they're all getting on all right. So probably won't add anything for now. Famous last words, of course, no doubt next time I do an update I'll have another 10 in there. So going back to the corals quickly, the Zoas are all doing well, as I say, they're growing and spreading already, and I'm going to put that down in part to the fact that I'm feeding them. Now I've never fed corals before directly, so this is new territory for me. Obviously it's too early, it's only been a month, so it's too early to see if this is actually making a difference, but I've started feeding them with Polyp Lab, what's it called? Reefroids. So I just sort of do that sort of so far once a week, I guess, and I don't know if it'll make much difference, but I hope it will do. And corals are supposed to be healthier when you feed them, so looking forward to seeing the results of that. Now what I've taken to doing is doing the feed with the Reefroids before I do a water change. So I'll feed with the Reefroids, do a water change the filter sock, and then hopefully any of the spare bits of Reefroids that are left floating around the tank will get pulled out a little bit more. So the other thing I can tell you about the tank as well is I did have a small outbreak of diatoms that was sort of a dusting on a sand bed, but that went really quickly actually. I was quite surprised, and that's it. I was expecting to get a lot more, maybe an algae outbreak, but I've not really had that either. Now it's still early days, so that could come, but I was expecting bacterial blooms or algae blooms or something. None of it yet, so pretty lucky so far. Hoping that will stay the same for the next month or two, and then after I've been set up for 3 or 4 months, then I guess I can probably consider myself to be past the early stages. One thing I have noticed is that I've got to dust the algae off the glass a little bit more regularly now, probably every couple of days, and I've bought myself a Tunzi care magnet to do that now. Up until recently, watch this, the Zoa frag holder. Up until recently, I've only had the standard floating algae magnets, and they are rubbish. They're really hard work, and they don't get the glass clean at all, I find. Whereas these are brilliant. Now I've got to say, the nano one isn't quite as good as the full size one that I had on my last tank, my 4-footer. But it's still really good, and it helps clean the glass. So although I've had to dust it every couple of days, or at least 2-3 times a week, it's made that much easier by the magnet. I'll put a link to this in the description to that, so you can go and check it out. You can get it probably cheaper if you shop around, so have a look, but I would thoroughly recommend the care magnets. Now, I bought some other equipment as well since I last updated you, one of which was the Senai holder. So my Senai was sat in my sump before. I'm not going to bother showing you because it's not very interesting, but I've now got the magnetic holder. I hate myself for buying that because it cost about 25 quid and it's a total and utter rip-off. It does not give you any value for money, but I got a bit fed up with the Senai just waving around in the sun, so I bought that. And I've also bought another power head, so you can see at the top right hand corner just about, let's see if I can point out, well, in fact no, you can see that easily. Top right hand corner I've got a Jebao or Jekod SW4, and on the left side about halfway down is an SW8. Now I first bought the SW4 because I thought that would be plenty. It is not by any stretch of the imagination. It was nowhere near enough, so I bought the SW8 as well. I'd probably rather have two SW8s and dial them down a bit, but they're doing a good job, and as you can see from the top of the tank, I'm getting a good bit of flow. The only other thing I've really added to the tank in the last month or so is half a dozen Blackfoot troker snails. My cleanup crew was far too small before, so that's really good, and they will hopefully keep on top of any of the algae outbreaks that I get. And I've added a load of copepods today. Theory being I've got a Wrasse in there now, so it's probably going to, oh well, a Halichoris Wrasse in there, so it's probably going to help him out if he's got some stuff to pick off the rock. That'll take a long time to settle, but I've put them in the sump and let's hope they bed in nicely. So now on to the bad stuff. Well, I've told you about the hawkfish who died. That was very bad news. And I've also had a couple of corals die as well. The first one that died was a frog spawn coral. Now that was a really nice green with gold tips frog spawn. Looked amazing, it was nice and fluffy, it was doing really well. And it just kind of withered and died in the space of a couple of days. Now that was on my little Euphilia garden, which I will do a close-up of now. And here we are. That was in my little Euphilia garden, so I did have 3. In fact, no, I had 4 at one stage. I was up to 4, but that withered and died. And in fact, I can show you a before and after video now. So this is before, this is what it looked like when it was healthy. And then this is what it looked like a few seconds before I took it out of the tank when it had died. So now it went to that over the course of just a few days, and I don't really know what happened. I think it got stung by one of the other hammers, but then the other hammer died as well a couple of weeks later with pretty much the same effects. So not sure if it's my stability or something. Parameters are all fine, but I don't know. Probably just because it's a junior tank and I'm just writing that one off and saying forget about it, nothing I've done wrong. Now on the subject of parameters, up until recently everything was really stable and nothing was going wrong. I had like next to no nitrates and phosphate was 0.03, maybe nitrates of around 1 at the absolute most. So that was all going well, and if anything I wanted to get that up. Well, I have succeeded in getting that up. And phosphates are now at 0.11, which is a massive jump, although I'm not too concerned about it. And nitrates are at 5 parts per million. Now, that's actually a good thing. I like having some nitrates in there, particularly given that I've got no SPS in that tank. But the annoying thing is, I thought that my Acans would really open up when I get the nitrates up. And I thought they were looking a little bit sad because I'd had no nitrates. But let's do a quick zoom in and I'll show you what they look like. Here they are, and yeah, they're looking okay-ish, but they're kind of sulking a little bit, and I'd really like them to be extending and sort of blowing around in the current. So I don't have the excuse that it's just because I've got low nitrates now. Not sure what it is, but I guess that will just get better over time. The one at the front on the right, that was a much brighter blue and green colour when I first put it in. Now, I don't know if it's just because it's a new tank, and I've just got to give it a bit of time. But I wonder if my phosphates might be affecting the colour in that, but not too concerned. It's still early days. All I need to do is level everything off and keep it nice and stable. In terms of my other parameters, everything is pretty much exactly as I would like it, and everything is stable. So KH is around the 8 mark, something like that. Maybe it was a bit higher, but it's stable. Calcium was 420, 430, something like that, and magnesium was, I don't know, 1350 or something, but it's all been stable and that's all been solid. Salinity also is at 1.025, so that's all nice and level. No problems with levels, actually finding it relatively easy to maintain it. The only exception being nitrates, which have crept up, and phosphates. Hoping that nitrates will cap off at that level, but we'll see. I'm still not too concerned about it at this stage because it's early days and I'd like to just let it bed in for a bit. And I think that's just about it in terms of updates. I've done quite a lot, and I did say I'd slow down, and maybe I'm suffering as a result because I've lost a couple of hammer frags. But I'm not too fussed about that really. I just see that as par for the course, you know, that's just what happens, isn't it? So I'm still actually quite happy with the pace I'm going at, even though I'm going quite quickly. That might change if the increase in nutrients is marking the beginning of the end of the honeymoon period, but we'll see how it goes. I'm pretty happy for now. What I want to do next is add more cleanup crew. So I'd like an urchin, blue tuxedo urchin. I think they're amazing. The one thing they do is nick all your frags and use them as camouflage. Now I think my frag plugs with all the Zoas on are heavy enough to stay tied down, but I'm not completely convinced, and they are little buggers for that sometimes. So that might be a bit of a risk, but doesn't really matter. I'll just keep an eye on it. I also want to get a Mexican turbo snail and maybe a brittle star, but don't know, probably leave that for now. Aside from cleanup crew, I do want to add some stock. Mount Cracker Zoa, I think, is pretty much full of Zoas for now, but if I saw something really pretty, I could probably be tempted. I would like to add a few more LPS, maybe make up for the damaged or the lost hammers, but I don't know about that. I'm not too fussed, but what I would really like to add is a clam. Now, supposedly Dorasa clams are the easier to keep, and they require less constant parameters, all that sort of stuff. So I'm considering whether to do that. I probably shouldn't do, but I don't know. We'll see. If I find a really good one, I'll probably go for it, to be fair. Now, I was talking about the potential of adding a doser on my last update as well, because I was adding a few LPS and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to be all right. I'll probably just have these Zoas and then a few LPS, maybe the clam, and I think I'll be able to get away with just water changes. Now I'm keeping doing them about 15% a week, so I'll keep those up, and with a bit of luck, I won't need to add the doser. So that's it for my update this time round. Got through quite a lot in the last month or so, and I'll give you another update in a month's time when maybe I will have added a clam, but hopefully everything will have stabled off and it'll all be working great. I've also got my eye on another fish. I'll tell you what that is in the next update, because I might well have bought it, but I'm trying to resist it and I'm trying to be good. So next update is going to be in about a month's time. I've just done a review of the Jekod powerheads, so look out for that in the next week or so. But that's it for me, so please give me a subscribe and a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and until next time, I have been a Reef Dork. Thank you, good night.